Good morning, YouTube. I'm gonna let this run for a bit to get some people in here. That's the most important part, right? Um, so we got about the time I finish this coffee. We'll see how this goes. It's been a while, um, but hope everybody's doing good. Everybody is holding down the fort out there on the YouTube. Lots of good content getting out, so it's good to see people aren't slacking off like me, um, or they just got more time than me, maybe, or they have a production crew. I don't know. It's good. Everybody's putting out lots of good videos. The usual suspects. And speaking of usual suspects, there's Steve. Steve holding down the fort, putting out some good stuff with his morning chats and stuff, keeping people on the level while holding it down behind enemy territory. That's a definitely a two-time job there, Steve, doing that. Um, hey, Alicia, what's going on? Alicia's doing travel videos. I like it. It's like you gotta have multiple channels, right, Alicia? If I could have a channel for traveling and a channel for doing everything else. But it's good to see everybody. Yeah, that was a rough outcome there Tuesday, Steve. That was very, very disappointing. Like you would hope it would at least have been close, right? um, Still waiting for the state of Jefferson to do its thing. That would be a good outcome. But yeah, everybody's doing good. But definitely, time is a factor. Time is always a factor on us. Now we got, as the as the headline says, um, or the what they call that, your thumbnail image. As the thumbnail image says, running out of time, right? Um, it's like always time for something. Now we got winter coming up. Um, Hopefully everybody's thought about winter, getting ready for it. The concern of food shortages is real, I think, this year. Again, it won't be, and I think, it's one of those things. It's a declining returns type of situation where it's a little bit worse than it was the year before. We talked about it a long time ago how it's not going to be all at once. You're just out of stuff, but you're going to start running out of selection. You're going to start running out of variety. Uh, instead of three different brands of canned beans, you're only going to have one brand of canned beans, or on and on. The examples continue. Instead of having um, choices like three different types of tomatoes and plus the organic tomatoes, you're only going to have two. Maybe the organic aisle runs out. Maybe you don't have that in your store because of your location. Things like that are going to start occurring. The labor shortage has really started to hit hard now that the high schoolers went back to school, right? I've noticed we had a Jack in the Box nearby. It's closed. A Jack in the Box restaurant, which is always busy, it's always had people there, is closed. It's not because people weren't going, it's because they ran out of labor. um, I confirmed this last night, and I didn't get to talk to anybody directly, but I'm pretty sure it was because they don't have the workers to fill the staff to fill enough time to run the restaurant. So there is a shortage in options. It's an example of running out of options, for different reasons than a lot of us think. But that's all going to add up, and eventually, those kids aren't going to have side jobs. Those kids aren't going to be able to, buy a used car. That on and on, the trickle on effects, as they happen. And I'm sure that things like that are going to happen lots of places. Um, and maybe something will happen. Those kids will get other jobs. Who knows? But people are running out of time to do the things for this winter in particular. Um, but overall, I think too, um, I don't know. There's always time to adapt, right? It's one thing I just thought of. You're not always out of time, but time is moving against us. But you have time to adapt, um, time to change your plan, time to adapt to what's the changing circumstance, right? That's why there's always time to prep. There's always time to do something different. Um, Whether it's, you didn't do a garden this year, to do something better next year, to do a better garden next year, to move. Um, moving is always the last option in the before winter, I think. um, Moving in the middle of winter is it's hard to get settled in a place um, when it's hard to move around outside and get things done. So, not the best idea if you're wanting to set up a homestead or something like that. But you got to do what you got to do. There was anecdotal evidence that the movement out of California increased after Tuesday night, for example. But not ideal. I mean, granted, you got about a couple months to get out of California and get settled somewhere else before winter, but not ideal. Um, but there's always options, right? You always have time. Let's see, we got Rob Painless in the house. What's up, Rob? J Ufum. Gray Note, what's up? Guns, what's up, Guns? This is an ugly crowd. Yeah, at least she always brightens up the crowd, right? Somebody's got to keep us looking good. Uh, yeah, ugly crowd indeed. I bring out the best ones there, Guns. Right on. Right on. Hey, good to see everybody. Um, but time is always a factor in always our decision making, right? We always think we have less than we may have, um, but it's got to be a consideration. But don't let your perception of time make you panic. I think would be a closing note on this chat here, or a highlight. As much as time seems against us and things seem to be ever coming down the track towards us, don't let the impending, winter, don't let the impending collapse, the impending tyranny, don't let that make you panic. Find what you can do to ease your situation, to improve your situation. Good example, I think, that following people on the YouTube, New York Prepper. I don't know if you guys follow him. Dang, his name escapes me. Greg, New York Prepper, right? So he was leaving New York. He had been talking about going to Tennessee, and midstream, mid movement, he changed his plan and went to Pennsylvania. Maybe that was OPSEC. I don't know, but he did a whole video on the whole deal and his decision making on why they ended up in Pennsylvania. And that's a prime example of you think time is ticking, and he wanted to really get to Tennessee, but he adapted and changed his plan to do what he had to do and settled there in Pennsylvania, at least for the time being. And it's easier, obviously, most of us on here. I think everybody on here. I don't know Gio from that well, but if you got kids, it's definitely hard to stop and change things midstream, right? Even all of us, all of us got kids. It seems like, and if you were to do something like that and change midstream with kids, it's much more difficult than like Greg in his situation. He's single. I think he's got a fiance, so they were able to adapt quite readily. That's easy when you're young like that, right? But us old timers, you're strap hangers. It's a little harder to change that, right? But it's a consideration that you always want to be open to, right? To making those changes as time ticks on. The side chat's just going back and forth. Alicia has found many back roads and talked to many people, finding multiple safer locations. right? And that's the good thing about traveling, right? Like, I've been to so many places in Nevada. Like, Nevada, in Utah too, Alicia, they're so open. Like, you can pull off on so many back roads and just get away if you had to, right? It's not like it's just you need to know where that best road is that you can get off the highway, right? You can't just pull off any highway and expect to get miles back in the backwoods, but there's plenty of options in these western states. There's another usual suspect. What's up, Midas? Midas rises from the dead and starts putting out videos. I guess, was it last week? Just recently here, Midas just starts, boom, back on his game, getting back on point. Good stuff, Midas. Appreciate you. That was getting on topic quickly after being out of the game for like Midas disappears and moves to Montana, the Great White North, and then all of a sudden he appears from the dead and is pumping out topical videos on point. It's like, well, here we go, right? Yeah, that was good stuff, Midas. Thanks for bringing up stuff to think about. Yeah, but running out of time is something that we always think we're doing, but it's always good to take a step back and reevaluate. Keep your keep your head on straight. Don't let the time changes coming too, right? We get to fall back an hour or what? Well, no, that's a ways away still. They change when they do the time zone change, right? So I think that doesn't happen until like the first week of November now or something like that. Um, Redneck Prepper, what's going on? Another old timer. Thanks for checking in. That's good to hear, Midas. It's good to hear. Yeah. Um, but time ticking on. Don't. It's one of those things where you can't worry about time so much, but just progress where you can and what you're doing. Um, it's like with this garden. Um, it's been a good summer. Getting out lots of produce, and now as we're getting towards the end, it's like I'm literally like weeks. I mean, any day now, really. Well, any week now, we could have a freeze and the garden's done, right? So time is ticking on that front. Like I can't get enough stuff pulled out of there and stored away. I still got potatoes in the ground, um, which should be fine. Cold doesn't affect that as much, but peppers, tomatoes, all still producing really great, right? And it's like, but time is ticking. They're gonna their time is short. We could have a freeze, next week, depending on how the weather changes on us, because it's that time of year. But if we can get it extended out into October, all the better. We got lots of pumpkins coming in uh, that are going to be good, and watermelon still getting watermelon. Cantaloupes just ripened up. I've eaten a couple cantaloupes. Um, all that stuff, right? Cucumbers, frost to really kill the cucumbers off. Um, the melons, though, we could cover the melons pretty easily. Could cover everything if you had the ability, but I don't know. It's a difficult chore after what we did this past spring, having to cover everything before that last freeze. And now, if we had a freeze now, we'd can only get so much. We've gotten a lot of tomatoes. It'd always be good to have some more, but we just call it what it is. Pull off what we could, and probably call it on the tomatoes. Pepper plants I could almost pot probably. Uh, Now that I'm thinking about it, now that I got some time to think about this, because the pepper plants aren't huge, I could definitely pull up the whole root ball and put it in a potted plant to bring it inside somewhere, and probably let those last few peppers all grow out. The sun would be an issue. Maybe move them, put them in a pot sizable enough to move them inside and out on the deck, maybe. But that's an option, something like that. Taking the time to think is always something good. We're going to stay on the subject of time here as we're clucking down our clock here on how much time we got for this chat. Steve Foco showed up, made an appearance. What's up, Steve? Crane out. I think the dementia patients are least of our problems. Not even an issue, because he's not the one running the show. Oh, Alicia, you have a citrus tree? Wow, that's impressive. Because this is not the type of area growing zone. Even just the sunlight. I like a sunlight for those things. How does it do in the deep dark of winter? You know. I guess it probably doesn't produce fruit, but I guess it keeps it alive enough, right? How do you get enough sun on it through the winter months when it's freezing outside? I guess would be my question. That's pretty impressive. Um, it would be hard to keep a greenhouse warm enough for a citrus plant around here, but I guess you got to do what you got to do. It's cool. It'd be cool to have. I've always, way back when, we first, were settling in or whatever. I've always wanted an avocado tree. Same issue, similar citrus problem. You know, it'd be great to have a lemon tree or a grapefruit. You know, but it's hard. I don't know that I have the room. Also, is a problem. You growing lamps. That makes sense. Yeah. Oh, they're in your living room. Oh, okay. Oh, so you like have them grow lamps set up in your living room in a way that. Oh, that's a hardcore prepping right there, Alicia. Alicia did a Wapini project way back when, and she cut it out on me and never finished it. I was wanting to see the results of that. I keep egging her on like every year. I ask her what's going to go on with that. She says she's not going to do it again. I keep wanting to see the completion of that project though. But that's pretty cool though to have that. That's always a good sustenance. Citrus in the northern altitude or northern latitudes going to pay dividends at some point. All right. All right. Good to see everybody checking back and forth. Yeah, Alicia, have you ever done a video on that? I was trying to think. I don't think I knew that. That's good information. You should do a video on your setup, like how you grow citrus trees in the northern latitudes. Just informational for everybody else. And I guess it gets expensive on the power bill, but the Joint Task Force DEA Joint Task Force rolls by your house, scanning it every week, trying to figure out what you're growing. With the way they operate, but yeah, that's pretty cool. I guess it depends on how much power you're drawing off the grid for them to be concerned with you. They go after the big guys, that are growing things all in their basement. Not that it's daggum legal just about everywhere, but the little man can't try to get ahead, have his own stash or nothing. Steve says around 2012 there was a guy on YouTube experimenting with fish tank hydro grow lights. Was that for? I'm not sure what the fish and grow lights had to do with each other. Is that because the grow lights helped feed the fish because it grew things in the water? And they were self-sustaining that way? I'm not sure what the. I'm sure you can grow fish indoors, I guess, but I guess the grow lights is one of those systems like the water for the plants go to the feed the fish, and it's a cycle, one of those cycle things. They use the grow lights like that. I've heard of those in shipping containers, so I guess it'd be the same thing in indoors anywhere else. I guess I think that might be what you're referring to. That'd be pretty cool. Hard to sustain in a total fall, but definitely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Midas, there you go. The fish, it's a cycle. The fish support the plants and the water, and the nutrients come out of the fish into the plants, and I guess the grow lights support that, and you use the plants too to feed the fish, depending on what it is. Plus, you have your plants to do whatever. You could be growing micro plants or even larger types of grow plants. What is up, Diorce? Coming in hard. My goodness, coming in hard with the $10. Yeah, Diorce, when you started those trucking videos, I really enjoyed that. You're okay, Diorce. Thanks for showing up. Good to see you. I did not know you were a trucker until you started doing those trucking videos a while back. Those that you did, I like those fails in trucking or whatever you call it, the stupid trucking videos that you're watching these other truckers do stupid stuff, or even other drivers on the road. You had a couple of those were pretty good. I always enjoy that. I follow a couple guys on truckers on Twitter, and they're always posting stuff about dumb drivers, and the Swift trucker joke is a never ending joke. But those are truckers are always fun to follow because they're always going somewhere else, right? They're always traveling, doing what I want to do, and showing some great places and talking to people and stuff. And I don't know, it's always good to truckers have a good perspective on things, and they have their ear to the ground because they're always, places out there, so if you're not following truckers on social media, are you really in the loop? I guess because truckers have their ear to the ground in so many different places on so many different days, So it's a informational network, if you will. Just like in the old '80s videos, old '80s movies where they, use the CB to communicate and keep everybody informed, and now it's just on social media, but it's the same type of network. There you go, Alicia. At least get that Volpini video tied up, right? I was really looking forward to finishing that series. Although, as you said, it was pretty hard work. It definitely looked like some. I mean, you had that thing pretty deep. I mean, it was at least head high, right? The hole you were digging. I mean, it was deep. Uh, you definitely had it going on. But yeah, thanks for dropping into yours. Uh, yeah, I don't know what your schedule is. I know you drive. You drive over the road though. You're not just day in and day out. You're back. You're gone for days at a time, right? So you definitely see some country. A guy in Nebraska grows citrus trees in his house. Geothermal. That's pretty cool. The geothermal deal is a different level of. If you can get into that geothermal heat to heat your house, and you can do it in Nevada if you're in good positions. I mean, like um, our well water is temperate. It's slightly raised temperature because of geothermal activity. I mean, it's not like boiling hot, but there's places that you can find in the area if you like when we were first getting ready to move again into before we moved into this property, shopping around, and people that my wife knows from growing up, like they have to have a coolant tank that comes out of the well to cool the water before it goes into the house because it's so affected by geothermal currents and stuff. Opportunity definitely exists out here in the West and here in Nevada too, where you can heat your house with geothermal. That's definitely a cost savings if you can get it set up early. Um, I would imagine trying to add that onto a house after the fact is probably cost prohibitive for the most part, but doing it from the get-go, we even looked at one house that had a geothermal loop in the floor heating. That was pretty cool. Um, yeah, that stuff's out there for sure. He used the geothermal heat to heat the whole greenhouse. Right on. Yeah, that'd be a good. It's a good prep right there. Smarter, not harder, right? Growing things throughout the winter would be ideal. Um, as long as you keep the temperature up, does the lack of sun not really affect them as much, plants as much? I've never really. I know where I grew up, people had greenhouses, but it's a little bit less of well, I don't know. Growing up in the mountains, it was like the sun was only on things half the day anyway. Um, so I guess the sun angle or the amount of sun they get in the winter in a greenhouse doesn't matter so much as the temperature keeps them pumping out some produce. Obviously, not the same level probably as summertime, but to be determined, to be continued, I guess. What's up, Irish? See, now I had to offset Irish this time because Irish has been doing his morning chat again, and so I can't step on his toes, and I can't step on Steve's toes over on his Monday morning misfits thing, and whoever else. Like, can't ever get a word in edgewise with all these people out there. uh, Good to see you, Irish. Good to see you. Right, yours? Yeah, right on. Yeah, I figured you were. You were out and about so much that it wasn't like you were just driving for a day and coming home. You were definitely gone for days at a time. How many greenhouses do you have, Irish? You're all in that growing game, pretty hardcore. Here we were talking about time, and now we're just talking about growing stuff. It takes time to grow stuff. I guess that's the biggest lesson from there. If you're going to start growing stuff, start growing now. At least start learning now to plant next spring. You know, if you don't have an ability indoors or in a greenhouse, like start figuring it out now. Because um, I did that video. Tony was even asking me this summer what we were doing, like what did we do to our garden? You know, because we were having pretty good production, right? And I was like, it's all manure. You know, and I was doing those videos last January and February. You know, of prepping the garden. The prepping and the garden work starts in winter. Whether it's getting your soil right or getting your plan, getting your seeds, what you're going to plant, all those things. Um, Next year, I hope to have a bigger garden. Um, Planning on we have impounded one portion, there's like a third of the garden that we had impounded, and the animals are in a pen right next to it right now. We can open that up and increase our garden size by about 30%, I'd say, by moving them over and into another, setting up a pen next to that again, bound and stretching it out, increasing our garden size. So that's something they got to get planning on now. Ain't got the time to do it. When time comes for April, ain't got time to mess around with that. Got to get that stuff figured out now, and people things start getting in place and moving to get that done. You know, so take the time now if you're looking at planting stuff for sure. It's like, people come across things this time of year, and I guess time is procrastination is the enemy of time. Might be the way to say it. you know, a procrastination definitely is the enemy of time. You have to take advantage of what you got to make time your friend. You know, a bigger, yeah, bigger, Rob, not a beer garden. It is Oktoberfest, right? We know where Rob's head's at. Oh, yeah, bigger garden. Don't think I don't have a way to produce produce a beer garden. Would be a little more actually difficult, but yeah, bigger garden would be ideal. I got, water wise, as far as drip irrigation and everything, I think I got all that figured out this year. I can just expand on that. Um, some lessons learned on that. Would have to really lock down the rabbit control early. We did pretty good on the rabbit control this year. Kind of slacked off the last month. Um, there's I think I'm fairly convinced there's a young rabbit, like a yearling rabbit living in my tomato plants. I just can't prove it. I've chased them out of there so many times. Um, we've executed our fair share of rabbits this year. The hornworm issue on the tomatoes is just like a management process. Pick them off as I go through. The tomatoes are so almost, it's like a jungle. You know, the tomatoes are almost so much out of control that, I don't even worry about the worms so much now. I pick them off when I see them. At first, I was pretty concerned because I know that those things they can tear up your plants pretty quick. But our plants have been growing so much that, I just pick off as I'm picking tomatoes. I pick off the hornworms if I see them. I'm not too stressed about it because it's just like a jungle with those just two rows of tomato plants, and it's like you can't walk through it, you can't walk between them. They grew over into the broccoli and cauliflower on the one side, It's pretty much didn't want to make the um, tomato cages any higher because of the wind, right? So the wind and just the way they grew fell to one side, the leeward side. So they all grew to the leeward side, and it's just like you can't. You're like wading through it, trying to piece through to, pick your tomatoes. It's pretty crazy. So wasn't too worried about that. Pretty sure there's a rabbit growing in there. It's the end of the season, and I'm not too worried about that. Um, but it's been a good year for the garden, despite some of those challenges. The beans. Oh, yeah. Speaking of time and the beans didn't. Beans kind of got started. The rabbits took out about half dozen plants, birds, and then some bug or something got into them. We're not going to have any beans. It looks like. So that's unfortunate. I hated that. I don't know what it was. It happened right about the time we first started getting the bad smoke. The beans started getting hit by something, and when that smoke was kicking in, I just wasn't getting in the garden as much. I was not putting as nearly much time into it, just because you couldn't stand to be outside. Had to be outside to get some of the basic chores done, and trying to put the extra time in to figure out what was going on with that just wasn't in the cards. And so the beans are a total loss. So we'll have to figure that out next year. Um, and we just got time now to wait on the potatoes. Turned off the water to the potatoes easily 2 weeks ago, but they're still green. So we're just waiting for the potatoes to do their thing and see what we get harvested there. We had a good rain last week, so I don't know how long it'll be for potatoes finish off and finally finish their deal, die off. Steve says birds are destroying his tomatoes. Is that right? And I think we have a kind of a secret deal with our birds, Steve, because I think that they come in. You can see where they've hit some of the tomatoes, but I think they also hit the worms a little bit. So they kind of keep the worms tamped down a little bit, but they tax the tomatoes a little bit too. So we have a trade-off relationship going there. I think. Meat prices are out of control, says Midas. Yeah, I've seen some postings online of the meat prices. Um, it's going to, like we were talking about, shortages earlier, your variety, which will definitely drive prices up. They keep saying there's no inflation. The Fed admitted to 5% inflation, which means we're probably at easily 12% inflation or something like that. Um, Overall, not just on certain items, it's much more than that. It's pretty crazy. Gray Note says butchers are busy in his area. Hey Chavez, what's up, El Chavez? How you doing? Long time no see. I see you in other chats. I see you drifting around out there on the YouTube. But yeah, good to see you. How you doing? All the butchers have signs say not accepting deer. Wow, that's crazy, Gray Note, because this is a prime time deer season here. Deer hunters have to be figuring it out for themselves, right? I should be going out next month trying to find a deer. Um, why do I need deer? I don't know. I just not say a need. Half the part of deer hunting is just the adventure, right? We'll see if we get anything though. I just consider it red meat because pretty much everything we have is white meat. So it's a little variety, and it's good to get out and work some skills. Get out in the outback out there and hunting down and working on some skills. Getting away from the madness, because it's like, do I really need the meat necessarily? Well, not right now, not necessarily, but it could become useful in the future. So yeah, we got a deer hunt planned next month, and I'm trying once again for an elk. We went out for elk back at the beginning of August. Was when it started, and we went out for our first week, and we had some really weird elk activity. Um, we were out scouting around trying to find some good areas, and water is always an issue. They're always going to go to water, and so we're finding the water sources and trying to track back from there. But the thing is usually they come down from the higher elevations, right? So we're looking, tracking out of the water sources up to 8,000 to 9,000 feet, and trying to find some of their lay down areas and stuff and sign and stuff like that. And all the fresh tracks we could find were all below 7,000 feet. And so I don't know why. I still haven't. I don't understand what's going on with that. Because they come down low for the water, but historically, naturally, their habits, everything, whatever, they always go back up high, right, after they get their water. Um, but in two different cases, two different sources in two different areas, the elk were all down low. All the fresh sign was down lower, close to the water, granted, but they were staying down low. It was like they were tracking across down below 7,000 feet instead of going back up high, and I don't know why. And it's kind of concerning because now I really don't have a clue of how I'm going to track them down here later in the fall. So more to follow on that one too. That's going to be an interesting hunt. I mean, in some ways it kind of makes it easier because they are lower, but it also makes it more uncertain because they're breaking their habits. Like they're not doing what they've done in the past, which is head scratcher, right? In that area, there's not been fires recently, so it's not due to that. It's not like anything. There's not like any activity going on that you could think of that was like, well, why are these guys staying down here instead of going, some up high where they, usually are. I don't know. It was a mystery. So more to follow. I've been asking lots of questions on that for people I know and trying to figure it out. Hey, Stan, what's going on? Stan Ulch, the Great White North. Mule Team showed up. Sorry, Mule. What's up? Mule Team showing up there for us too. And I'm running out of time here, so I'm going to have to cut this off. But thanks everybody for checking in. Thanks everybody for saying hello. Hitting that thumbs up button's always good. Thanks to yours for dropping us a dime there. Hey, Red October, what's going on? The knife thrower in the house. 3 months at least, Red. 3 months. Good to see everybody, though. El Chavez. Goodness, great. 3 or 4 deer a year. Nice. I guess if I tried hard, I could kill 3 or 4 deer a year, but Irish says a cellular trail cam is your friend. It's kind of hard, Irish, when there's no cell coverage in the areas where you're trying to put a trail cam out. There's no cell coverage in these areas, for sure. Abandon belief. Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the chat. Still believe. I don't know about abandon belief. But welcome to the chat. Good to see you. Welcome. Say hello to everybody. Go check out the other channels on here. Pretty much everybody on here puts out some content of some kind. You may or may not like it. Of course, we all can't live up to the standard of Guns Coast to Coast with his daily. If he doesn't put one out daily, he'll catch up later in the week and put out like 6 in one day. So, okay, you came over from Tactical Tony. Yeah, good old Tony. Tony's a long time channel cohort. Yeah, data dump, right, Guns? Yeah. All right, folks, be studious with your time. You only have so much. So, speaking of that, I'm running out of time, so use your time wisely, prep hard, live free.